Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to another Islands of Magic live stream. Today, I'm excited. I haven't streamed, but I have been Valheiming. You see, it turns out that we can make the dungeons a lot deeper. Yara posted a guide about it, and over the past couple days, I worked on that and put out a patch for Islands of Magic. I'll push it to Enigma probably, I don't know, in the next week or two. I'm going to sit on this one a little bit to mess with it and make sure that everything works right. But today, we're going to be doing dungeons. And specifically, I want to see if I can feel the difference in the dungeons since the update. Because I was doing burial chambers a lot, and then I redid the dungeons after seeing Yer's guide. And the way we redid them was by making them more, how do I put it? It turns out that there is a bottleneck that stops the dungeons from being really deep. And that bottleneck is if the dungeon gets those vertical rooms that are like staircases, either a stair going up or down or like a slanted hallway. If it gets those, then suddenly the dungeon will be much deeper. So basically what you can do is you can increase the chance of those rooms happening. And by doing that, you make it possible for dungeons to be much deeper than they normally are. But I just want to be clear with you, like, I don't really know the consequences of this, right? Because in Enigma, I've set things up so that this is ideal, because I've already spaced everything out. A dungeon is its own dungeon, and it's not near other dungeons. So that part is really good. It's ideal. But that being said, some of these dungeons could get enormous. So I don't really know, like, maybe there's a problem. Maybe it'll get too laggy if it's really big and there's monsters. I have to kind of play it a bit and try it out. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, pretty much. I'm just going to be kind of play testing this new patch, specifically seeing if the dungeon feels deeper. So I'm going to be doing a lot of dungeon fighting. And for my actual character's playthrough, I think what I'm going to work on now is kind of making some armor and weapons I feel more attached to, if that makes sense. Like this, I feel like I'm just wearing like a random hodgepodge of stuff. You know what I mean? I don't even have a belt yet. Like, I don't know, what is this? I've been like a pirate bandit this entire time, and now I have this castle, but I haven't even like done the second boss chest. I haven't even gotten a crypt key. I've just been doing burial chambers and building this place and sailing and putting cargo crates in boats. That's been so fun. I really like putting cargo crates in boats. It's very, very fun. Anyway, don't get me started about the cargo crates and the boats. As you can see, I'm easily derailed. The thing I'm trying to get at is that I need to feel more, I don't know, attached to my equipment so that I can start feeling more interested in empowering and doing these other things. So I'm kind of wondering what I want to do with the armor. It looks like I would need to get, I would need to get a bear trophy to keep going in that direction. So maybe I should just keep my current setup, use the arrows and the two-hander, and just do some dungeoning the same way I was, and practice the new looting system. That sounds like a good idea. I'm just gonna put this away here. Every time I put an unlabeled thing in the wrong chest, I hear Teensy suffer, just like on my shoulder. I don't know why, but I just imagine her like, what did you do? No, I saw that. It's funny. All right, so let's see. Is there any other context I need to give you guys before I shut up? I don't know, but you're welcome to ask. If you ask something, I'll respond. But I'm gonna try and just kind of play, and then when something intense happens, then I'll react to it. But I need to pay attention because the dungeons can be kind of crazy. But I got frost arrows and silver arrows and fire arrows. That's like all the power you need in Enigma at the end of the day. As long as you're not near another player. The dynamic is so odd. It's like Enigma becomes harder around other players because AoE hurts people. So if you use fire arrows to make things easy to kill, that's fine. But the moment you're playing with a friend, suddenly using fire arrows to kill everything is a bit more problematic, right? I noticed that when I was playing with Haloa, because I would shoot fire arrows like to fight things normally in single player, and I was used to that, and it was fine, and I felt strong. But then Haloa came along, and I kept accidentally killing him, so I stopped. Oh shit! Let's see. So I'll talk a little bit about this, and then I'll go on. So in Enigma, when you die, the game kind of finds a spot near when you first die, and it makes a memorial to you, right? And it looks at your current equipment and makes a mannequin based on the equipment that you have. But what's kind of funny is it doesn't forget, right? So I have a bow and a sword on the mannequin. And it's funny because I've been using a bow and a sword. So it sort of reflects your playstyle. And each time you die a certain amount, like let's say you die 50 times, or you die about 80 times, you'll reach a new level, and then you get an even bigger memorial. And it gets grander and more extravagant until the cap of 1,000 deaths when you have like the ultimate memorial. I dream of someday tying a quest to them, but alas, not yet. So, before I do my dungeoning, I'll do a little spiel for those of you listening. Valcon is happening. Have you ever wanted to be part of a Valheim convention that's online? Because now's your chance. The actual event itself is open to the public and anybody will be able to watch. We also will have servers people can play on. And some of these are like long-term communities. So if you start playing with them now, you're going to have a place to play Valheim even after the event ends. So if you like Valheim, you should figure out what Valcon is, all right? But my point is that this lovely convention that's available for everybody is happening on April 17th, 18th, and 19th, okay? But if you want to actually participate, like let's say you have something Valheim related that you want to show off, for example, or you want to make some content, well, you have a couple more weeks. You can submit that, okay? So we're looking for people still. And if you're interested in that, you can just go to the Valcon YouTube channel or go to the Valcon website. I have this little banner, as you can see here. Yeah. So you can just check that out if you want to learn more. And I'll talk about that from time to time. But now I'm going to go through and I'm going to start doing this dungeon. I got my ultra cart ready. I got all my loot. Everything's good to go. So I'm going to see if I can tell that I made the dungeons significantly deeper. I'm going to pay attention to the latency and the lag, especially as I continue to reset the dungeon multiple times, because I want to see what happens and if having a really big dungeon causes performance issues that I need to limit, if that makes sense. Because right now, the dungeon will just like go as deep as it can, pretty much. And it can be kind of deep sometimes. It's pretty cool. But it's also easier to get lost, harder to loot everything, pain to loot everything. So we also had to make a looting system, and that's what I'm going to be testing as well. If you have any questions or you want to ask about anything, just feel free to drop your question in the chat, and I will respond. Yeah. With that, I will get to it, as they say. to be honest. These dungeons always trick me because something Valheim does really well, and this isn't something I've changed, it's just how Valheim is. It's quite good at having a give and a take with the combat and enemies spawning. So you'll often find that it's more of a thing in the overworld, but you'll feel that there's loads of enemies, and then that seems to be true, and then there's no enemies. And you'll feel that there's never any enemies, and then that seems to be true. And it's sort of, how do I put it? There's this give and this take. It's like waves in the ocean. The monsters come out and there are a bunch there, and then there's not any. And then there's a bunch, and then there's not any. And it's actually quite important from a gaming perspective, because you need moments of peace in order to kind of appreciate the intensity that just happened. If you have constant intensity, then the player doesn't really experience the intensity as effectively, if that makes sense. So something that happens in the dungeons is this similar dynamic shows itself, and I've leaned into that to add more to it. So it's not something I added to Valheim, it's something Valheim already does, and I kind of added more craziness to make it happen more. Make sense? So in dungeons, you'll often find that it feels like, oh, like so far, this feels like a normal dungeon, nothing crazy, right? And then that can trick you, right? You can feel that way, but then you come across a room, and then suddenly there's a whole pack of, or there's other stuff, right? Like now I have a wolf here. That's not expected, right? But that's still kind of minor. You know, oh, finding some tin, now I want to mine the tin, right? Right? You need tin. I need tin. I have tons of copper, but I don't have much tin. So I'm like always scrounging for tin, apparently. Didn't know that till I actually was playing more, but here we are. So then you gotta loot stuff, right? But it gets so heavy. And then you have not much space, and you gotta go to the front and do all this. Well, this is where our new mechanic comes in. So in theory, I should just be able to say I'm full, and then this is going to spawn a dungeon looting crate, which I can then just fill up with all of this stuff, right? And then I can just kind of walk away, and then what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Boom. Vanished. So it's actually gone outside, freeing me to have a free inventory again, not have to deal with going all the way back to the entrance and back, okay? And I know this may seem cheap, and maybe in normal Valheim this is cheap, because the dungeons aren't that deep. But trust me, I found that from earlier playtesting, deep dungeons are nice in theory, but in practice, there's so much loot that the player stops looting stuff because it's so frustrating to, like, get full, go back to the entrance, throw the stuff, put it in a chest, whatever. Go back, do it again, do it again. It makes this relationship where the deeper the dungeon is, the more painful looting the dungeon becomes. So what this mechanic that we've just introduced does is it allows the dungeon to be looted without any additional pain. So the dungeon's super deep, it doesn't matter. The looting process is the same. As you just saw, I fill my inventory up, say full, I get a chest, I fill it, and then it gets vanished. You don't know where it's gone at the moment, but I'm telling you, it's outside the dungeon on the ground. So when I finish, I can clear the whole dungeon and go outside, and all the stuff from the dungeon will just be sitting in a pile in a safe place, right? You'll see what I mean once I actually finish clearing the dungeon. And who knows, could be a tiny dungeon, or it could be a big one. But for now, we'll get back to it. So this dungeon's pretty small, so this is the last part here. We'll see if there's any more to it. You know, I think I've gotten enough black cores now. So I did dungeons a couple times, and it's like rare, as you can see. Sometimes you get black cores, and even rare, you get molten cores. So you can get stuff way earlier, right? Uh-oh. Oh, shit. So I think I got enough stuff. I might be able to make a black forge. That'd be cool. Ah, he got me. I alt-tabbed to look at something, and then he threw. I didn't notice I was on fire. It's funny, that's exactly what I was talking about. I get like cocky and I think like, ah, this is just a burial chamber. I have crazy equipment. But then all it takes is like one or two ranged monsters spawning near and you putting your guard down for a second and then boom, they get you, you know? And it's funny too because as I did that, so I paused to look at the other screen to note something, right? Because I found that the best scripting notes come from when you're actually playing Valheim. That's the most organic reaction. Is to like have the experience and then an idea comes while you're having the experience. So I was thinking how like, oh, it'd be kind of cool if there were some different monsters here. But I can't really put the charred and other ones in there because they're too strong. But I thought about that and I was like, oh, wait, I can just make them a weaker version, like a special version that dies in one or two hits, right? Specifically, I want to make the mage because it has ranged attacks and it can summon. So that adds a whole new level of dynamic, right? So I could make a, a, a mage version for the burial chambers that's really weak. It's like glass cannon, right? It just has a little bit of health. So that would be really simple, and I think it would add a lot of depth. So I can add it as like a rare monster that you come across sometimes. And if you find one, like, oh dang, it's kind of like a necromancer, right? I think that'd be pretty cool. So 1 second, add weak variant of charred melee and mage to burial chamber and sunken crypt spicers. Nice. All right. Sorry about that. I was just adding my notes here. Let's Let's see, am I all good? I am hearable. Yes, I am hearable. I have the thing there. I got my Valcon logo on the thing. Nice. Now I guess I just need to see if I actually hooked up to YouTube, right? Oh, I did. Nice. Awesome. Alrighty, so that's all good. That's all good. Alright, time to go back there. And I guess now I'm gonna pass by the, oh, I didn't have a fire lit. That was silly. I thought I was getting a rested buff. But basically, I'll pass by all of those dungeon crates that I teleported out. So I'll get to see if it worked. They should just be, like, kind of in a pile outside. If it all worked out. I guess we'll see, though. Alright, time to go. I thought I was epically jumping over. Do you ever do that? Like, you line something up and then you mess up the timing? So instead of, like, that, you just, like, face plant into the ground. It's always funny. It's funny, you probably caught what I did. I instinctively, because I've played Valheim technically more than I've played the changes in Enigma, like as an actual player perspective, right? I still have tendencies of habits from normal Valheim. So I came back in here to get my body, which is like hilarious because I had just talked about how the loot is moved outside, and I know how the loot is moved outside. It's moved to the tombstone recall point, which just so happens to be something I triggered right in front of my memorial when I was describing it earlier. So I come out here, and look what we have. We have not just a tombstone, but hidden precariously underground here. Which I guess I should make it go up a little bit. The actual dungeon looting crates are here. They're just, they like fell under the terrain. And sometimes that happens in Valheim. Usually you just have to fix it like this. And so there's another one that's probably like falling up and down, pretty much. So I believe I did two. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So it looks like what I need to do then, I need to make it so they spawn a little bit up. Because otherwise they kind of fall under the terrain and then players will freak out. I'll get messages about them deleting all the stuff because people just log out and that'll be a whole mess. So I should make it so that they float. Because then, yeah, it looks weird. They're floating. But at least you know they're there. And as soon as the player touches it, it'll just fall to the ground. So that's probably a more elegant way to handle this outcome. So let me just note that real quick. Add 2 meters to Y of dungeon looting crate teleport. Nice. All right. Okay, now with that, it is time to get back in. now I can put all the stuff here. I can act like that was my plan the whole time to free up my inventory. Really, I just completely forgot and went into the dungeon instinctively without thinking. It just goes to show, though, doesn't it? I definitely felt like it was very vanilla dungeon. These two parts seemed pretty normal. There were a little bit of spawns behind me. But aside from that, it was pretty typical. And then this corridor is just like loads of monsters, right? And that's the kind of thing, like, I didn't plan all that out. Like, basically what I do with the scripts is I make something possible, and then the experience really has a way of... It's almost like a sentience of its own. Like, obviously, that's not really true. But that's what it feels like, I swear. Because, like, the dungeons... I understand now what's happening. Basically, at first, when you enter a dungeon, there's too many monsters already present. So when you kill monsters, it's gonna seem like the monsters are going away. Because it won't spawn more monsters, because it's already at the limit of how many monsters can be there. Makes sense? But as soon as you've killed a decent amount of stuff, then suddenly there's a lot of space for it to spawn new things, right? And this is part of normal Valheim. It's not something I've added. It's something I've worked with. Makes sense? So I've extrapolated that out more to try and help make this cadence in the dungeons where the player feels like something's normal and then boom, suddenly something surprising happens, right? So now I'm at this situation where I actually really enjoy the dungeons. Iron Gate did a great job with the different dungeon generation. They just didn't itemize the dungeons properly, so players don't go back into them enough to really enjoy them the way a procedurally generated dungeon can be enjoyed. Instead, dungeons in Valheim for most players are a very short-lived experience where they go in a couple of them. Maybe they do 2 or 3. They certainly don't do 30 or 40 or 50 of them like you do when you're getting everything and all the money from it, right? Like in Enigma. But we'll see what actually happens, right? But the thing I was trying to explain, and then I'll just keep fighting, is that now I feel confident in most of the base mechanics of the dungeon. I'm trying to figure out how deep the dungeon can be, because ideally I want it so that sometimes the dungeons are so deep players get lost and like they want to escape and they're just glad to be out of the thing. Like I want that to be able to happen. So that's all another thing though. What I'm kind of trying to also figure out is what kind of other special events can happen. So currently in the crypts, you'll see that, all right, there's different monsters, right? So you're used to there just being skeletons, but you can see that there's a bunch of craziness, right? There's Surtling, there's wraiths, there's starred monsters. Whoa! What an assassin! Did you? I had no idea he was there. I was so fixated on that. Okay, you see what I mean? Like, stuff shows up behind you. Sometimes it's a lot stronger than you might expect. It's designed that way. It's designed so that you feel very strong and then you're killed. But you still have... Like, I have silver arrows that in one shot can eliminate an entire room of undead. But that doesn't mean I won't always catch the undead that stab me in the back. You know? That's the idea, like an ebb and a flow, a back and a forth, so to speak. I'm going to be more food heavy this time. That tends to work really well. There's an accidental correlation in Enigma. So if you like fighting with melee, then in Enigma... the more health food you have, then the easier it is to get a bubble from the bubble blocking mechanic. So it heavily incentivizes using all 3 health foods if you are playing melee. Like, you will find that you can stay alive more easily that way, even though you don't have as much stamina. That's like a Enigma meta thing, though. Don't worry too much about it. So now, because I actually remembered what I'm doing, you can see that even though I died in the dungeon, my body is outside, right? It's at this tombstone recoil point, and that's also where all of the stuff gets teleported to, right? Gets thrown right here, pretty much. This is done for a lot of reasons. Again, it's to rework the dungeon experience so that it is more accommodating to people. And you get to do more of the fun stuff, the exploring and the fighting and the running, right? Like it just exploring alone doesn't feel fun if nothing ever happens, right? If you have it so that there's things to run away from and scary, exploring feels more interesting. If that makes sense. Give me a second here. All right. To be honest, the dungeons I'm really excited about seeing are the mountain caves, because when I was doing the testing for them, they could get really, really deep. Like, shockingly deep. I was really surprised. And it was pretty obvious that what happened is that when Iron Gate made these dungeons, add another level to the dungeon wasn't really a big deal. It was like, oh yeah, sometimes maybe it'll have a staircase going to another level. Just, sometimes throw that in, spice it up a bit. But the dungeon itself wasn't really that big. It's simple, right? And I think that works well because it's the first dungeon. It should be more simple and less extravagant. It works perfectly well that the dungeons become more extravagant as you progress. I like that. I don't think that these are like boring. I think they serve a valuable purpose. But what I noticed is that it's the same guy who got me. That's so funny. He's like, shut up. But what I was saying is, I've noticed that the first dungeons kind of fill out the area horizontally. Makes sense? And then the sunken crypts are almost always just one floor. Like, they have a kind of chance, but because of the spacing and how it works and zones and everything, it's really unusual. So most of the time there is not a 2-floor sunken crypt. But then I just saw the generation for the mountain caves, and holy crap. It's very obvious that Iron Gate took the lessons they learned from the crypt dungeon generation, and then they applied all of it to kind of redo it and make the dungeon generation for the mountains. Because the mountains just fill the whole place up. Like, they do a much more thorough job of it. And from the player's perspective, it's not as obvious, but when you work with developing the dungeons and you look at them from the outside in, and you see the dungeon as a whole, it's very different, right? And one of the things you notice is damn, Iron Gate got a lot better at the dungeon generation after the Sunken Crypts. It's actually kind of like there's burial chambers, which are the starting point. They're simple. And then there's Sunken Crypts, which are kind of broken in some ways, if that makes sense. Sorry, I'm laughing because I have the narrator set to say emojis for some reason. So it just started saying all of the emojis from that Discord spam thing. It's funny, it distracted me. But my point was that it's very obvious that Iron Gate got a lot better at the dungeon generation. So that's why, like, from the player's perspective, the Frost Caves themselves, it's not just that they are bigger. They quite literally use a better dungeon generation that fills out the vertical space in addition to the horizontal space. And so the way it works is you have the crypt dungeon generation, this one, and it's pretty good. It's simple, pretty good. Usually 1 floor, could be 2 floors. Technically, it could be like 7 or 8. But you have to get lucky with the placement and the generation for that to be possible. It can't always be the maximum because of the way everything meets up in the RNG elements, right? Let me shut up for a moment and remember to get a bubble shield before I fight. Yeah, there we go. So you have the simple dungeon, which is this one, and its generation goes outwards and rarely has extra floors, but it can have extra floors. It can have like 2, 3, sometimes 4 or 5 floors, especially if you count like kind of mini floors. But most of the time it's 1 or 2 floors. Then you have the sunken crypt dungeon generation. And this one is funny because it's almost as if it's broken. Like it has this staircase room, but it doesn't, like, because of the amount of space it takes up, it doesn't actually create extra levels very often. It usually creates dead ends. So it's almost like the sunken crypt dungeon generation is worse than the first crypt dungeon generation. But that's only from an outside looking in perspective. From the player's perspective, it's not really experienced that way, so I don't think it matters. But the thing that's really cool is that then you get to the third dungeons, the mountain caves, and then suddenly the dungeon generation is freaking awesome. It just like populates the whole area really well. You just have to adjust a little bit and it just floods in like water filling a pot, you know, and like I thought that was really cool. So I'm personally quite excited to do the mountain cave dungeons, and at some point I'll make a base near a mountain cave so I can just like do the dungeons a bunch, because I've actually never had that experience in Enigma myself. I've always kind of like messed around and then gotten so lost in development that I just kind of lose interest in playing, or something happens in my personal life or whatever. But I don't feel that way now. Like, it's funny, this playthrough is very different for me. Like, I definitely, sometimes there's like days that pass by, but I don't, it's not that I don't want to play. I want to play. It's just there's like a lot of things I have to do in my life, if that makes sense. I'm lucky though. A lot of it's related to Valheim. So like basically I accept not really having certainty and owning anything. I rent things that I own, but I have a happy life and I'm able to do a lot of what I care about and practice game design. I just have like no certainty financially about anything in the future, if that makes sense. Because I don't own anything. I don't earn like a good amount of money, or I don't earn, like I earn like a little bit of money from the content, but it's definitely not like, I want to be in a position where I can just work on Enigma and I don't have to balance working on Enigma against my ability to like make sure that I'm able to earn enough to pay rent in these things, if that makes sense. So like now it's all kind of like intertwined, and I don't really like that because it means that when I'm in like financial uncertainty, that I might get stressed about Enigma development, or Enigma might be like influenced more by that. And like I know like everyone talks about money and say they don't want money, whatever. I really don't like care to earn anything from Enigma. It's more like I want to be able to work on it. Does that make sense? And so like that's why I do things in the way that I do, so that I'm able to spend a lot of time working on Enigma. And like really, I think it would probably be fine if Valheim was more popular of a game and it had more like traffic in general. But because of the nature of my content, I cater to like server managers and people who develop, and that's like a small percentage of players. For reference, if you look at all the Valheim servers in Peak and all the Valheim players, it's 1 to 67, something like that. So like 1 to 60, 1 to 70, whatever you want to go with. That means that for every 70 players or every 60 players, there's around one person who will rent a Valheim server or host their own one. Because like it was public information, right? So the work I do is not 1 out of 70. It's then like 1 out of 100 of those 1 out of 70. Because of most of those server hosts or people who are hosting their own Valheim servers, most of them are not going to do the kinds of things that I do and teach about and make content about. So realistically, the content I make is relevant to only a few people of the Valheim community. And for me to actually like be able to just focus on development and making YouTube content the way I do and not have concerns, basically Valheim has to be like overall the category of Valheim needs to get around double or triple the amount of traffic it gets at the moment. And then I'm like set, I'm totally fine. I won't have to even talk about money. It's not that I'll have like lots of money, it's that I'll be in a position then where I don't have to be concerned about having less each month, if that makes sense. Because basically, like, my life is a bit more expensive, but not a lot more expensive than what I earn. So I'm able to stay in a situation where I'm overextending, and then I get lucky, or someone helps me out, or something happens, and I'm able to kind of deal with a bit of that, and then it's okay. Or I get a loan or something, like, but it's precarious. Makes sense? Like, stability is not something that is apparent, if that matters. And it's not something I want, like, to have to talk about. Because, I mean, there's one thing in a video game, right? Because, like, a video game's just expensive. You're actually selling it, that kind of thing, right? It's different. Whereas, like, right now, like, I'm trying to just get an education. I really don't want Enigma to be at all about money, and that's why like I've been very clear and upfront about like copying it, and like the whole point of the project is so that people take the scripts and make their own things with it and use it as their own, and they don't need to give me any credit. They can take anything they want from it, and like that's the whole idea. I want more people to do these projects. I don't care if you like take Enigma and then delete half of it and then claim it's your own. That's fine, as long as you're like doing a project. I don't care, like you can do whatever you want. I want more people doing Valheim project because they're really cool and it's really healthy and it's a fantastic way to study game design, right? Like it's just incredible at the end of the day. Like if you compare it to getting an education, like when you get an education in game design, you get a lot of theory, and then you have to like convince someone to hire you or have a runway to like, you know, make your game. But at the end of the day, like you need practice, you need experience, you need to be able to predict player psychology. Otherwise your game is going to get in the way of itself, because if you can't predict what the players do, you're screwed, you know? You're going to think they're going to do a bunch of awesome stuff, and then they just don't, because they don't appreciate it, right? Hey, Immunity, what's up, man? So I'm new to the Twitch. I know more about YouTube, but I don't know much about Twitch. But then in the last podcast, we raided. I didn't know what a raid was. So I'm learning new things all the time, right? And we came to your podcast, or not your podcast, sorry, your stream. And so after that, I checked out your channel. So it's cool. I like what you do, man. Got a cool vibe. I hope things are doing well with you. What have you been up to? Alright, let's see. Ah, yeah. That'll be cool. Don't worry too much about it. I mean, so it looks like the podcast will be basically twice a month for a while. And the format, I'm one of the co-hosts on the podcast. The main host is Easy, so he does streaming Valheim stuff. And then one of the other co-hosts is Emma Potato. She also does Valheim streaming. And so basically the format is it's the three of us, and then there's a guest. And we kind of take turns asking the guest questions. That's the idea, at least. So I don't know exactly what guests there are going to be, but the next one is with Kaisen. And that's pretty soon. That's on Wednesday. So that'll be interesting. Kaisen's really cool. I definitely am excited to get a chance to interact with them. That'll be fun. Oh, I feel you. That's funny. Man, just so you know, in Enigma, people die like hundreds of times, thousands of times in some cases. Mostly, it kind of reworks it to be intense, right? So I'm just laughing because, yeah, it's like I'm imagining only dying 5 times in one day, and it's like, damn. Sometimes I die like 5 times in like 10 minutes. I feel you though. I mean, to be honest, I mean, you play more traditional Valheim, and traditional Valheim takes a percentage of your current level away when you die. That is hardcore. Like, people say Dark Souls is hardcore. Dark Souls doesn't take away your level. Like, it takes away your gained souls that you haven't spent yet. But even Dark Souls isn't so ballsy as to take away your level. That is insane. It's like super hardcore compared to other games. Ah, goddamn, I looted that whole freaking chest. That's no good. This is a bad situation right now. Here we go. Let's I think I'll be alright. Made these the dungeons are way bigger now in Enigma, right? But a bigger dungeon is nice in theory, but really frustrating in practice. Because looting them is a pain. Oh, yeah, no metal run. When I first heard you say that, I was like, oh. I didn't think about not using armor. Root armor, I mean, wearing root armor in the Ashlands is pretty brave, man. That's definitely... I think I would probably just go with something fast. Because that's usually what I play. To be honest, I have a hard time not playing in full Fenring. Like, I just love how fast it is, especially with like, the movement speed from the cloak. Although, I haven't played since they adjusted it, so I don't remember how it works. But it used to be that you could wear Fenring and the Askfin cloak, and then if the wind was going in a certain direction, you could run so fast. You could basically dodge and just fight and use that direction as a dodge, you know, because your character moves faster whether you're running or not. And I really like that. I love playing with light armor, to be honest. An eternal quest of mine in Valheim has been to make heavy armor more enjoyable, basically. But it doesn't scale so well in the higher difficulties, and Enigma's set to very hard, and that's kind of like problematic. So when you're playing Valheim differently, I mean, the game totally changes. So that's pretty crazy, man. Going into the Ashlands with that kind of thing, only dying 5 times is impressive, really. Like, that means you got your stuff back, probably. Like, Ashlands is intense for people, definitely intense. Yeah, that makes sense. To be honest, I love playing that way. For me, like, Valheim, the thing I really like, that's so funny. I saw that I didn't have a hammer, and because I'm so used to developing, I instinctually was like, spawn hammer. It's okay though, I don't have SDC on this profile for that reason. So I can't do that. That's why I don't really like, I hate doing development stuff on the same character as you play on. Because I don't know, it messes my psyche up. I can't really get into the character as much. But when I separate the characters, which is what I do here, I make it so like I can't use Devcommands even if I want to. I have to like log out. And that way I feel fully like I'm immortal. I can die, you know what I mean? I have more fun that way. That's cool though. To be honest, I mean, how do you feel about the monsters and the combat in the Ashlands? Because I know that people have sentiments about the Ashlands, you know, but I personally am a person who likes a lot of variety in weapons. I like slowly over time trying different things out and different ways of fighting and seeing different monsters. So for me, like, and especially as somebody who develops a Valheim experience where I use the assets they give, I freaking loved the Ashlands because it gave so many really cool effects and different things that you can use, really cool monsters, really cool weapons. Like, I absolutely love it. But then I saw that how most players, they just don't get to experience any of that stuff, you know? That's where it's like, you know, Valheim's in some ways is really cool that it's procedurally generated, but in other ways it's very linear, and the linearity of Valheim is sometimes fighting with the open world procedural generating part of Valheim. They kind of contradict each other over time, if that makes sense. I think when players first start, it's not like that, but over time it becomes like that, you know? Sounds like you have a lot of fun though. That's awesome. I love it when people are playing in the Ashlands, really. It's definitely something that, like, basically the mentality I use on Enigma is take all the stuff out of the Ashlands and introduce it to players before they get to the Ashlands, like way before they get there. That way they can experience the assets without having to experience all of the progression to the Ashlands before that point. So you end up with like an introduction to Ashwood and Growston, but you can't really get it in huge quantities until later on in the game. And I personally enjoy it that way more. Oh, goddamn. I'm trying to get out of this dungeon and I'm just getting wrecked. Oh, God. Oh, I'm going to get shot in the back by an archer. No. Oh, my God. I have like 3 minutes and then I'm going to get kicked, so. I don't actually remember where. Ah, no. Okay, cool. You see, that's what happens. The dungeons trick you. I thought, oh, this is little, it's tiny, right? And now the server's about to do its maintenance restart, and, like, I didn't even finish the dungeon, you know? Crazy. That works out, though, I guess. So what I'll do, I'll stop streaming now, and I'll quickly patch, while the server's restarting, the looting crate. Because right now it's teleporting outside, but they teleport like underground sort of, and they get like triggered into each other, right? So I need to make it go up by 2 meters. So I'm gonna actually stop the stream and do that. And the server turns back on at 6:10. So right now it's 5:58. So I'll start streaming again in 20 minutes, okay? Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next part of this live stream. Ciao.